I think we're ready to just jump right into it. The first thing I have to do is when we were finishing up last time, I didn't notice that there was actually a mistake in this translation that I wrote down. The goddess upon the sea should be the goddess is upon the sea, because it's a, what is it? Someone tell me.
Yeah, goddess is upon the sea.
Yeah, it's an adverbial sentence.
Maybe in parentheses, much more correct. Or
that, I mean, so I'm a big believer in using parentheses when we tweak anything in a text or a translation, and this one I don't think so.
Yeah, actually for beginners, yeah.
Well, not even just for beginners. I mean, if this were like, you know, if this were publication for other Egyptologists, I wouldn't put parentheses here. Why wouldn't I put parentheses? Why do I think that this is actually perfectly valid as a translation of this? I don't think is an addition to the text. I think it's correct. I think it belongs there.
Yeah, okay, if that's your opinion.
It's because if it was a phrase instead of a sentence, there would be a relative marker.
Yeah. So the goddess upon the sea. This is a relative clause in English. This means the goddess who is upon the sea. That's not correct. That's not what the Egyptian says. The Egyptian says the goddess is upon the sea, but it doesn't do it. The Egyptian doesn't provide this grammatical feature with a single word in the original Egyptian. It does it using a specific construction, right? So English and Egyptian just have totally different ways of accomplishing the same thing. English does it by putting a little dummy verb in there. Egyptian does it by constructing the sentence in a specific way. They're just two different ways of doing the same thing. So it is present in the original. It's present in the way that the words are put together, right? So this isn't an addition that I've put in. It truly is part of the original language. It just accomplishes that in a different way. And this is the same thing that we'll see happen with, you know, when we look at the way late Egyptian expresses possession, like the man has a house. Late Egyptian will say, there is a house which belongs to the man, right? And we can translate that literally, there is a house which belongs to the man, or we can translate it as the man has a house. Both of those are totally valid translations of the original. We have not modified anything. It's just English produces that meaning in a different way, and we have to reflect that. So yeah, no, I think this belongs there. It is present in the original. It's present in the original in a different way. So yeah, good stuff. Oh, something else I did in between us seeing each other is I moved to the Coptic. So before, when we were doing this, I was putting the Coptic after the translation. And then I sort of realized that there's actually like a nice gradient of distance here, where like the transcription, I mean, as terrible as transcription is, it is a direct reflection of the original hieroglyphs. The Coptic is a, you know, it's kind of more distant in time and, you know, linguistically distant in the sense that it does have some changes in it. And then the English is obviously, you know, as far away as you can get. So I rearranged things that way, and I'm going to continue that way going forward. So yeah, that's why it looks different. Okay, so we're going to finish this up, the exercises, and then we have a new chapter to read, and then some more exercises. So yeah, we got a lot to do. We'll see how far we get. Again, Dante is the first one on the list. Dante, do you want to? I skipped you in hieratic, so I guess I should give you a shot here.
I'm just auditing in that class. It's above my pay grade, so. But here I can do it. Okay. So pahej her dep paper. So the silver is upon, or the money is upon the house.
Yeah.
And the Coptic would be Pahat Hichen Pepor or something like that.
Yeah. Let's get our Coptic in here. The money is upon the house. This is a mistake. No.
Should just
Maybe on top of. Because we did
Okay.
look at this. We did look at Hijen and he
Yeah.
and the distinction. So yeah, hot, he, gem, heh. I mean, that's a reconstruction, but yeah, heh. He, gem, heh. And this, you know, we might put a little something in here, the money / silver. That's a little tricky. I do think it's interesting. So once we get to Wenamun, I'll definitely point this out. There are times in Wenamun where he refers to quote unquote silver when we know specifically what he's talking about, because he's described given us a brief inventory of what these things are, and they're mostly not made of silver. So it's interesting that he chooses to refer to these valuables that he's bought in order to trade for lumber. He just refers to them as silver, even though they're not all made of silver. So that's a good indication that the word hot has already come to basically mean money at this time period, which kind of matches what we know historically. And then in later Coptic texts, either hot or homt are just silver or bronze are used in translation of Greek text where it just says money. So yeah, so we definitely know they were used at least later and probably here to mean money, but just like a minor caveat there. Okay, what you got for this one?
Panebcher Pata. The Lord is on the land, or like he's in the land, like he's in the region or whatever.
Yeah.
And Penev Heapto.
That's it. That's all pretty good Coptic. Ta is really uncommon in Coptic. You almost never see it, but it does survive. So yeah, Penev Heapto. That's a perfectly good Coptic sentence.
Okay. Na Nechra De. So the gods are here or there.
The gods are here. Yeah, I would say here.
So Nenter Tai.
Messed it up.
And
yeah, should this be like this? I think it should. Yeah, Nenter Tai. Good.
keep going.
Do you want to do one more? I feel like
Sure.
you're on a roll, so yeah,
Okay.
might as well.
Abaki M Ta Nuet. The manservant is in Thebes or in the city.
Oh yeah. Maybe I shouldn't use. I can still use it. It's fine. It's okay. Look at this. Wow. Thanks a lot.
So Nuet can mean either just generic city or Thebes in particular, or?
Yeah, I feel like at this point it's pretty much Thebes. Oh yeah.
And
Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay, Kathy. We'll come back to your question after we finish the Coptic for this one.
And it when it's referring to Thebes, it still has an article. The Thebes.
No, actually, it's
okay.
just nay. Yeah, I'm not really sure. In late Egyptian, is the word niyut still used generally for city? I think it is. I'd have to double check on that because it's off the top of my head. I can't think of having seen an example that I can remember that would let me decide. But let's, it's close enough, right? For learning's sake, I'll mark it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll mark it so I can double check it later. Is niyut still used? Okay, I can double check that later.
And the Coptic would be provoke M Tanai.
Yeah. That's pretty good Coptic. I mean, this part is a little bit reconstructed, but yeah, pretty good. Okay, and then going back to Kathy's question, wasn't this Necheru? Yeah, so I've said quite a bit about this and I don't want to belabor the point, but in late Egyptian, we really don't have that relationship anymore where the plural is just u. We have lots of internal evidence from the way words are written in late Egyptian that they're not just making things a plural by putting an u on the end. And then we have a lot of that evidence that we have, like the word for fathers, for example, has a double reed leaf on the end. And then in Coptic, it's yoda with an epsilon on the end. So we have this evidence within late Egyptian that the plural is not just u. And then we have that being sort of confirmed later on where we have like different phonetic things going on that show that the plural is not just u. We have a great example of it here where we have, nute in the singular, nute, and then inter in the plural. So it's very clear that, sorry, that plural doesn't mean just adding an u to the end. So in an effort to sort of reflect the new environment of late Egyptian, I've been doing it this way by putting just a 3 on the end. I might end up like superscripting this 3 or something. But
yeah, I keep getting confused and reading it as an aleph, you know.
Yeah, it looks like a lot like an aleph. I mean, nothing I can really do about that at this point.
Yeah,
Okay. I think I had just looked at maybe a resource that I thought was late Egyptian, but was an earlier iteration and it had the W on it. So it was probably just a different resource.
It also might have been late Egyptian.
Okay.
As far as I know, I'm the second person to do this.
Okay.
So it's not something everybody does. And like, maybe it's not the right choice, but I'm going to try it anyway, just because like u is not the right choice either. And it actually, like, I feel like 3 is, you have less risk of misleading people because then you're just openly saying there's something weird about this, right? Whereas if I just put u and someone reading quickly could get the impression that you just make a plural by putting an u on the end, which just isn't true. So I would rather put something weird than put something that is sort of expected and easy to miss, because then that gives you exactly the wrong information. Yeah. I appreciate you putting your question in the chat, but as a general thing, y'all can speak up and ask questions in the middle of, while we're talking about something. So for instance, if anyone has questions about 32, by all means, unmute yourself, ask the question. And, it's Zoom, so you kind of get in the habit of interrupting when you need to and just apologizing for it if necessary. We'll work it out. Okay, so Dante did excellently. I don't know who's going to follow that. Does somebody want to?
Yeah, I can.
Mustafa, was that you volunteering?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I'm volunteer. Ta neçeret im the there is there.
The goddess is there. Yeah. You want to give me the Coptic too?
Tenter.
Nope. That would be the plural. Tenter is the plural. What's the feminine? Okay, this one you can actually figure out. Let me get my I'm gonna write a little bit on the screen. Okay, so think about like what we did. We've done this one before, so we did this phonetically, and we reconstructed something like natar or nachar for the original like etymological form of this. And then, you do, the final R drops off, the palatalized T changes to just a regular T. So we get like nata, and then this is the stressed one. So it becomes.
I just couldn't figure out how to be impress of the feminine form, because
Well, let's
as I
keep working on
remember,
it.
there is no also feminine form in the writing of Coptic.
Oh no, there is sometimes. This is a case where we do have a distinct feminine form. So let's reconstruct the ancestral feminine form with this ot on the end. Okay, and then we have the rule that typically in Egyptian it's the penult is stressed. So here we had natar or something like that. And then here we have natyarat. And then moving this forward, what happens first when we move this one forward?
If masculine form is not masculine form is enter or
Note.
note, then noterat,
Yeah, take it all the way back to the beginning.
Notere.
I've written it for you already. So so I've said like, okay,
notar.
to make this the masculine into the feminine, we just add ot onto the end, which is, you know, pretty well established from like comparisons to other Afroasiatic languages, etc. And then we have this rule of Egyptian that says the penult is stressed, and we can see that from the Coptic too. So I'm saying that the original word for goddess in, say, you know, hypothetically Old Egyptian or whatever, sometime very deep in the past, is natyarat. Okay, so that's what I've got here, written phonetically.
Yeah, I get it.
So now let's just let's fast forward, right? Let's run this forward all the way to Coptic and see what we get. Okay, so we have natyarat. What happens first in natyarat?
Natyarat.
You're trying to do the whole thing at once. I want you to take little steps. There's one thing you can do right away, that feminine T on the end.
Firstly, we can write note firstly. And
We don't have nute for this. Actually, that's not a future form of this. We actually have to stay here and take incremental steps until we get all the way to the end. I'm asking you, I'm going to get you to derive the true Coptic form just from first principles. Like take the original masculine, make it feminine, and now run it forward. See what we get. Okay, so
noterat.
What do you know about the final T on feminine words? What happens to it?
That's mostly it is the
I think we lost you for a second there, Mustafa. I'm going to take two steps here.
Yeah.
I'm going to change.
Actually, I couldn't figure out whatever how to do that.
Okay, well, I'll run through it then. Well, the first thing I did was I will delete the T, and we'll also change this from a palatalized T to just a regular T. So we get, and this is still stressed here. So we get natara. Then we have the vowel shift, which is going to change this to an O. So we get natora. So now we have an O and an open syllable, okay? And then these, we have a pre-stressed vowel here, which is just going to disappear. We're going to get syllabic N, to, and then this like post-tonic short vowel at the end. Yeah, and so now this is a stressed A-type vowel in an open syllable. If I wanted to divide the syllables, I would do it like this. So then that gives us omega for this. So we get in Coptic, ntora.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Tantore.
Tantore?
Mau.
That's it. Yeah. And like I think after we practice this long enough, we'll get to the point where everyone here can do this kind of thing, because it's really not as complicated as it looks. It's just applying a few rules that are pretty easy to internalize once you've done it enough times, right? You if I were to lay them all out for you, it would be totally bewildering, but you just see enough examples and they become super intuitive.
Can you somehow list the few rules that you're talking about somewhere, or should we read Alan's phonology? Or
I would read Alan's phonology. Yeah, because if I were to list them, I would just have to write a book about it. And he already wrote that book.
all right.
My
Thank
book would not be very different from his. It might differ in a few particulars. For instance, the doubled vowels in Coptic definitely represent vowel plus glottal stop. The evidence for that is really, really thorough. I don't know why he has decided that they're long vowels. I asked him about it and didn't really get an answer. So, so yeah, there would be a few kind of very specific differences, but it's going to be mostly the same. Like the vowel shift is totally known, right? And it's also, let's do like IPA vowel chart. Like it's very systematic. So you go like A type vowel goes here, U type vowel goes here. I stays mostly the same except short vowels go here. So you get this Widdershins movement, right? This is the exact opposite of the English vowel shift, where it was all turnwise, everything moved around this way. But yeah, sort of. It's a little more complicated than that makes it look, but you get the idea. Like it's systematic. So once you've kind of internalized the system, it's really easy to do. I internalized that system by just doing this for years and years. I honestly think that's the best way to do it. Because like, I don't know, I could list the rules for what I just did, like the feminine T becomes a glottal stop and then it disappears entirely. And syllable final R probably becomes a glottal stop and then disappears entirely. A type vowel and open syllable gives us Coptic omega. Like I can list all those things out and then it's just like a list of like useless statements, you know, how you actually apply them. It just becomes like a math problem. Right? It's like if I give you all the rules for differentiation and say like, okay, now tell me the rate of this process. It's like, well, I don't know what any of that means. You have to just do a bunch of practice problems. And that's kind of what we're doing here with those examples. So yeah. Okay. Mustafa, do you want to do another one of these?
Yeah.
All right.
Naharu or Heru. Yeah, it's plural. Okay. MDU pa ibet. That's it.
Yeah. Wait, EPED. Is it with P or B in EBED? I can't remember.
B.
B. Okay.
EB.
All right.
Because it is Coptic version. It is Coptic version is something like abet.
Yeah. That doesn't always tell you, but yeah, it is.
Enhuwe. Actually, it is Coptic. Enhuwe.
Like that? That doesn't seem right.
Actually, not. I mean something Howe.
No, there's an R in it. I can't remember how to spell it. Like this, I think.
If it is there are R sign, that's this means something like sound or through.
Yeah.
It's different. I mean.
Okay, how should I spell it?
There will no Howe and Howe.
Howe?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Hang on one second. Let me. I know I put a link. Aheu, there we go. Is that how I spelt it before? I'm
Yeah.
just gonna check my own spelling. Make sure I'm at least consistent. If I can't remember, I should at least be consistent. It's in here somewhere. Aheu, aheu. Okay, good. Okay.
MDU, into,
Just into. Into, well,
Yeah,
inta is the pre-pronominal form, which we haven't done yet.
okay, tebet, teabet,
Like this?
about, yeah,
Yeah.
about, tebot. The days belongs to the month.
Yeah. I think I'm probably going to cut this example too, like I did with the other one, because I'm just not sure that this is valid. I'm going to put a double check here. I'm not sure that that's a valid sentence.
As I saw, mostly beginner grammar books just make original texts part of original text, because it doesn't need to think a lot, because it is original text.
Yeah, I know. That has certain downsides though, especially since we like can't find all that many like simple sentences like this. Or you have to look forever to find them, and then your vocabulary ends up getting super huge. I'm trying to like greatly constrain the vocabulary. Yeah, it's tricky. I'm not going to use original text because I think it kind of gets in the way of just learning to read. It's better to have these like artificial crafted examples that, you know, kind of exactly present a particular grammatical feature, but whatever. That's a really high level decision, and I've already made it. So, okay, do you want to do one more of these?
Okay. Sure. Pa nature, the God here is here.
God is here, and then Coptic.
Penote, what I don't know what
Right.
version of the
Right.
really.
Yeah, it's pretty easy.
Penote tai. Really
Okay.
easy.
Let's do one more for me, Mustafa, and then we'll find somebody else to do the last section.
Okay. Pa ichai. Wrong keyboard layout. Pa ichai. Pa via.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thief in the bark in the bowl.
Yeah. The we are. Wait, what is the Coptic word for thief?
How to
Joe? Joe?
You had Joe before.
What did I have?
Hey, Joe?
Ejo? Like this?
Yeah.
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, good. I'm so glad I have you guys because I forget. I looked them up to put them in the vocab, but you know, they're not common Coptic words anymore. Okay, so
yeah. Pejo hem Pejo.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it blank because we don't really have
Maybe we can change the hieroglyphic version of with chow, sheep, and with that Coptic version should pigeon.
Yeah.
Maybe more logical, more easier than this.
Well, so all the words come from the story of Wenamun. That's why they're in here. But yeah, I can always let's see if I can replace it with the earlier form of joy.
If you make a harmony between the hieroglyphic version and Coptic version, this must more synchronized.
Yeah, it's worth a shot. I made a note of it. So yeah. Okay, thank you, Mustafa. Let's see. Who wants the last little bunch of the adverbial sentences? I'm seeing some interest from, I believe, Rasmus. I believe I see some interest based on your
Sure, I'll give it a
body
try.
language. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So that is pa wetpui. I'm unsure about that.
Yeah, that's good.
Pa mer.
Yeah.
And the first, I have no idea what the first one is in Coptic, but it means a butler.
Yep. It really, did I translate it butler? It really means valet.
Okay, you translated butler, but valet is fine.
So this is what happened. I was, when I was first doing the summer class, I showed the workbook to someone and they were like, why are you saying valet? Just say butler. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll say butler because nobody knows what a valet is. And now I regret that decision because it does specifically mean it's not the manager of an estate. That has a specific word in Egyptian. That would be like, yeah, emir. But it is like a person who is attached to a person as their personal servant.
Maybe something like,
yeah, like waiter.
waiter.
Yeah, valet. Okay, so Coptic doesn't exist.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, the butler valet type person is in the harbor.
Yeah.
And that one we do have in Coptic because that's Pemro.
Yeah.
Pemro.
Pemro. Yeah. The so-and-so is in the Pemro.
Yeah, okay, so
Is
38
it Pem or Tem?
Yeah, that's the thing. I thought it was feminine. I was about to make it feminine.
Yeah,
it
I
is
think it's
feminine, right?
feminine. Yeah.
It is.
And Temro. So it changes.
Yeah, it's another gender change. There was one before in the exercise somewhere earlier. Yeah, last week.
Yeah, I think we had
Oh,
Ime instead of
how
Tadime.
it is possible? Because Palmer, it looks masculine.
It is masculine in late Egyptian and it's feminine in Coptic. This is a thing that happens. Gendered languages, sometimes things swap gender over time.
Right, okay. So it's Temro. Okay, that's good. Right, so the next one is Pa Nesut Herdep Pa and that's Itreru.
Yeah.
So the king is upon the river and yeah, it's on top of the river.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be consistent about how I do
Yeah,
Herdep.
sure. And the Parnasut we don't have in Coptic, right?
Yeah, I think I suggested a reconstruction like and so.
Yeah.
I think most likely. Maybe it's with Omega.
And then the Herdep is Hijo.
Yeah. He
Hijan.
gem.
Yeah, because it's has the connection of the genitive N.
Yeah.
And then is that Peyor?
Your.
Your. Okay. So 39. Yeah, that's pa. And the next one is yapti.
Yeah.
Yupti. I'm not sure.
Yupti.
Yeah.
Yupti.
The yapti is a Haradep again. And then this time he's a Haradep, the Yom.
Yep.
Payom.
Yom.
So the messenger is on top of the sea.
Yeah, I don't know why I made all these I did randomize them. Like I made a bunch of sentences and then I randomized the order. So by coincidence, they all ended up together.
And here the yapti we do have in Coptic because that's apute. So this time it would be papute.
Yep.
Hijopa. Oh, is this yom?
Yeah.
I forget the exact Coptic form this is. It's written yeah, exactly like
Yom.
that. Okay, so
and you can actually, so this one is kind of interesting. So this word begins with, so this is wep, right? It's a biliteral wep, which is where we get the weputi, wepti. But something happened where it, instead of being like wapti, it became aputi, right? The W and P switched places. And then that's how we get this. Like if you look at the consonants of this, it's like initial vowel, P, W, T, final vowel. So there was some kind of metathesis in this word that results in the Coptic form, which I think is kind of neat.
Yeah, okay. So that is the pa, and that's eat or yot or something like that. Yat perhaps. Payat, and im, ta mute or
Neat.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the father is with the mother, and so it's Coptic. It's piyote, men, piyot. Sorry, piyot. Men temu, tamau. Yeah, tamau.
No, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So far, so good, everyone. All right. Thank you, Rasmus. Okay, that's adverbial sentences. We're going to see more of them, of course. They're going to show up over and over. But I think that was enough practice to kind of get an intuitive sense of how they work. And you can go back and reread those. Somebody was asking me for, they were asking me for English to Egyptian practice. I doubt any of us have all these memorized. So I would actually just do this. Like I would literally do this if you want English to Egyptian. That's a great way to do it. Start here. The father is with the mother. Construct the Egyptian, etc. That's what I used to do like years ago when I was learning Latin. I think I did all of Wheelock's exercises just in reverse because the answers are at the back of the book. I did that with Allen's Egyptian when I was an undergrad. It's really helpful and I strongly recommend it, but I don't think we're going to do it in class because I just don't see how that's going to work in like how the logistics work of us like actually typing in the Egyptian. But yeah, it's an excellent exercise to do on your own time. And you can ask questions about it in Discord and stuff. Okay. So chapter 6, which corresponds to whatever, chapter 3, I guess, in Lambda, indefinite articles, existential predicators, which is a word that I kind of made up, and negated adverbial sentences. So lots of stuff in this chapter, but we're going to get plenty of practice. So we talked about definite articles already. We just saw a whole bunch of them, so you probably remember them. They're these patana forms in late Egyptian, and it's just PTN in Coptic. And I just put something in there to remind you, you know, patana, really important, pretty much universal in Egyptian, worth remembering at every opportunity. This is probably the one case where we actually don't get patana, but things are still structured in the same way. So it's still useful to remember. So we have masculine singular, feminine singular, and then plural. These correspond in Coptic to u, and hen. And oh, let me zoom in on this. I think it's too small. Okay, so Coptic u, and hen. And then the first thing I wanted you to take note of is that in Coptic, there's really no distinction between the masculine and feminine indefinite article. Coptic books will normally just list a single one. But we can see in a couple of places that they actually are distinct. So in Late Egyptian, we do have these two indefinite articles. We have masculine wa and feminine wat with the feminine t on the end. And then in these words, when they just occur as full lexemes, we have a masculine and feminine form, which survive all the way into Coptic. So we have wa and wat, masculine and feminine, and then the presence of the feminine changed the vowel sound. So we have y and we in Coptic for masculine one and feminine one. And the indefinite articles, just like in English, just came from the word one. And it was just sort of abbreviated when it was attached to the front of a noun. And then in Late Egyptian, they're still, as you can see, they're still identical, right? The words for one and the indefinite articles are written exactly the same way. Although an interesting thing starts to happen in Late Egyptian where the feminine and masculine aren't actually used reliably with masculine and feminine nouns anymore. So it's pretty clear that in pronunciation, they have been so reduced that you can no longer hear a difference between the masculine and feminine in the indefinite article. And so they're written sort of randomly. They might use the masculine or the feminine with a masculine or feminine noun. They don't correlate anymore. And then the plural indefinite article is enhaien. It's quite long in Late Egyptian. It's not always used. A lot of times they just have a bare plural noun without a indefinite article, but it is sometimes used. And it comes from this word that means a few. So it literally translates as a few of. I think I put some examples. Yeah, wa'it or uyot in Coptic. Oh, I didn't put in the Coptic. Why didn't I put in the Coptic? But obviously we need that. Let's just put it in right now because we're talking about it. Insert column left. Yeah. Okay, Coptic. So uyot, uma'al, and hen yode. Those are nice because they perfectly match. Let's see if I can squeeze this without splitting anything. This is what most of the time writing this chapters is spent doing. It's like moving columns around so they all fit. Okay, yeah, made it happen. Okay, so yeah, you can see how these work. They exactly match what we get in Coptic. And in this chapter, I'm going to use masculine and feminine indefinite articles consistently, but in real text, they won't be used consistently anymore. But that's just to kind of get you used to the ideas, and you can start seeing some messy real world examples once you've practiced them for a bit. Okay, so that's all the stuff I already said. I think I covered all of that. You can.
Quick question.
Yeah.
For the indefinite article, isn't there a fuller version in Coptic, something like hoine or in hoine?
Yeah, there is a word hoine that I didn't actually list here. I didn't really find a good place to put it in. Hoine is the absolute form of the indefinite article. So it's the form you see. It basically is the word some, right? So if you were to see it by itself without being attached to a noun, it would be hoine. And you can see that in the spelling, right? You can see that this spelling really looks kind of like hoine.
Yeah,
if you were to vocalize this,
it's so similar.
Yeah.
yeah. And then if you take a word like hoine, where you have, you've got this semi-vowel in here. You've probably got a long a stressed a here, but it's in closed syllable. And then this word, the genitive, was originally like n plus some vowel. We're not really sure what, but we get ne. And then imagine just sticking this on the front of some noun. Let's say the word fathers again, because we already used it. Sorry, my pencil's kind of breaking down on me. Okay. And then put those two things together where the stress is just here, yode. And then reduce the stress of this one Okay, so now we have pre-tonic short vowel disappears, and then this diphthong, which is really dominated by this vowel sound, gets reduced to just an epsilon. So then from that we get hen, Yoda. That actually might be a good derivation to put in there, just to kind of show how these things work. Like this thing where you take Hoine and then put it on the front of Yoda and then just get hen. That's a very typical thing to happen in Coptic. That's a good intuition to have, how to take like a big form of the word and make it into its prefixed form, because it works very consistently. Like if you have an Omicron or an Omega or even an Alpha sometimes, you're probably going to get an Epsilon, right? Like that's just very typically how Coptic phonology works. Yeah, good question, Aurelio. Okay. This is all the stuff we talked about. So that's indefinite articles. They're pretty straightforward. They're just like English. The only slight difference from English is that we don't normally say some fathers. We normally just say fathers. And I put an example of that here. You could say there are some fathers in attendance, or there are fathers in attendance. Either way, the indefinite article is just sort of implied in the plural in English. This also happens in Late Egyptian too, by the way. You won't always see the plural indefinite article. Sometimes you'll just see like a bare plural noun, and then you're meant to understand that it's indefinite. Okay, existential predicators. I made this word up.
In mathematical logic, they call it existential quantifiers. The same idea. There exists, or there is, you know.
It's like
So
this
same.
guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's how I write it. I've seen, oh man. Has anyone seen that? I've seen people write it something like that too. It's really neat. I never picked that up though. Yeah, I mean, that basically is what it is. It says like there exists, or there does not exist. Okay, but so I got predicator. I think I got that from another book at some point. And then existential is just really obvious. It's what it is. But it creates a predicate, right? It creates a predicate of existence. It says there is X, or there is not X. Super useful word. It's kind of like, it really is, it's the equivalent of there is in English, where there can't really be analyzed in spoken English as a combination of the word there and the word is. Because in spoken English all the time, we might say like, there's a lot of people here, which grammatically makes no sense, because we should say there are a lot of people. But in casual speech, almost no one says there are. We just say there's a lot of people here, or whatever. So the word theirs has kind of become its own entity in spoken English, in the same way that this word works in Egyptian. It just establishes the existence of something, and it's necessary for indefinite nouns. And this also is very conveniently so much like English. You would never say like, a person is in the house. We would say there's a person in the house. You don't normally create adverbial sentences with just a indefinite noun. You always put this predicator on the front. Egyptian does the same thing, so it's really easy. And then it's kind of hard to come up with a word for this. A lot of things call them something like pseudo-verbs or verboids or whatever. I really don't like these kind of terms where you define something according to what it's like but isn't. It's a little bit misleading, and it can create confusion where it's like, okay, so it works like a verb then. No, it works nothing like a verb. It's not a verb. It is an existential predicator. Yeah. So there we have wenu in Late Egyptian, that becomes when in Coptic, and we have all of that stuff, men, basically. It's kind of group writing though, right? We're using the N plural marker of like the first person plural pronoun, and then the ma, those two signs together to just make an M. So it's just men. It originally came from nen wen, so there does not exist literally, but then they merged into a single word, probably from just frequency of use.
Holy,
You all right?
yeah, I'm right. I'm all right.
Did
just
men
shocked.
blow your mind?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, pretty mind blowing. And it works just pretty much exactly like you would think. So wenu rome, pretty straightforward Coptic sentence, is wenu wa remech. This is what it looks like in Egyptian. Wenu wa remech. And then if we wanted to say there isn't a person, men remech or men rome. This rule, I double checked. This rule stays the same all the way through. You don't put the indefinite article if you're negating existence. And I think this is quite intuitive, because if you were to say there is not one person, that could imply that there is more than one person, right? You're negating the fact of the existence of one person, but you're not specifically negating the existence of any people. Whereas if you just say there's no person, that means not one, not many, none. So yeah, I think there's kind of an intuitive logic there, but that's just my suggestion. I'm just kind of speculating about that. But whatever the case, you don't put the indefinite article on the negative existential predicator. And here's the part I just said. The existential predicators are required, maybe I should bold this, to form adverbial sentences with indefinite nouns. Much like English, Egyptian does not say wa remech im paper, a person is in the house, but rather wenu wa remech im paper, there is a person in the house. And that's true for late Egyptian and Coptic, so it's really consistent. Genitive prepositions. So we talked about these a little bit already, but here they are. So they express x of y or x belonging to y. There's a subtle difference between these two, but they're almost interchangeable, which can be a little confusing. It's actually, if you look at grammars, like the grammars we've been using, especially, gosh, just about everything, every Coptic grammar kind of gets this subtly wrong. So the n that means of is slightly different from mdu or nta. Oh, I did these the wrong way. Shoot. I did the transliteration in Coptic in the wrong places. I'll fix them later. But yeah, so there's two of these. N is the most common. It's the simplest way you can create a genitive phrase like x of y. And then you have an example here, pa it and pa wehau, the father of the fisherman, piot empuohe, perfectly straightforward Coptic phrase, father of the fisherman, or to make it more sort of naturally English, the fisherman's father, because English has this remnant of like a Proto-Germanic case system in the genitive, where we can actually like put an S on the end of a noun and make a genitive version of the noun. That's really the only case that's survived in English, aside from like who and whom and a few other scattered examples. But it's not even really true anymore. This is just a separate lexeme, because we would say like the mother and father's house. We wouldn't say the mother's and father's house. So it's not really a case ending anymore in English, but it's still kind of nice. And it gives you a sense of why we call this the genitive preposition or whatever, because it has this natural connection to noun or languages with case systems with a genitive noun form. Okay, so yeah, all of that. Piotim puohe, the fisherman's father. The ten and Tetasha. Wow, I really outdid myself with this one. Dana and Tadeshrat. The flamingo's wing. This would be a great title for like a beach read thriller. The flamingo's wing. Maybe I'll steal that. Okay, and MDU, it's a little bit different. So it does express a possessive relationship also, but it kind of has this additional notion of like a non-defining possessive relationship. So if we say the flamingo's wing, we're identifying a specific wing, namely that wing which belongs to the flamingo, right? So that distinguishes it from all other wings which don't belong to flamingos. It gives us a specific one. So it's kind of like it's definite, right? It's like saying the wing. Which one? That one right there, the one that we know that we're talking about. Whereas if we use MDU, it kind of expresses an incidental relationship. So I've given you some consistent examples here. Wa dena MDU ta desheret, or uden ente te tesha, a wing which happens to belong to the flamingo. And in my use of the indefinite article here, I've shown you a correlation that is valid throughout Egyptian. The MDU or enta form tends to be used with indefinite nouns, right? So there's a correlation between MDU and an indefinite noun, and N and a definite noun. Many Egyptologists have noted that correlation and kind of elevated it to the level of a rule, which says that N can only be used with definite nouns and enta can only be used with indefinite nouns. That's actually not true. It's recently been pretty thoroughly established. There's a paper about it, I think in Lingua like 4 or 5 years ago, that grabbed a whole bunch of examples and showed that this is actually not a perfect correlation, but it's kind of an intuitive one. If you're expressing a sort of incidental relationship, it's natural to apply that to an indefinite noun, or if you're expressing a defining relationship, it's natural to apply that to a defined noun. So there is a strong correlation there. It's maybe a little bit more than you needed to know about that, but this is going to become important later. And finally, negated adverbial sentences. So all the adverbial sentences that we've seen in the previous exercises were all affirmative. For example, tsone menen sneu, which this is just an example I chose from the previous exercises. The sister is with the siblings. We're saying she is there, right? We're not negating anything. And then to negate them, we actually need 2 words, much like French, or lots of languages use 2 words to perform a negation. We have ben at the front, which is just n in Coptic, and we have yuna at the end, which is just on in Coptic. So anyone who studied Coptic will be very familiar with these 2 words. And it works a lot the same, except for one subtle difference. So if we just look at the example, I won't read all of that. We'll just look at a quick example to illustrate how this works. Ben ta senet en yem na senu yuna. And then the yuna is kind of optional. So the sister is not with the siblings. Whereas in Coptic, we would say intsone menen sneu on. The on is actually obligatory in Coptic. So the equivalent of yuna is now obligatory in Coptic, but the equivalent of ben is not, it's optional. So we've seen kind of a shift over time where originally you just negated the adverbial sentence by putting ben at the beginning, or in Middle Egyptian, you put nen, I think. And then you can add on for emphasis this yuna in the end. So the sister is not with the siblings at all. You know, you put this sort of emphatic thing at the end to say it's definitely not true. But then over time, the initial word of negation becomes less obligatory because people consistently put this at all word on the end. This actually happened in English. The original negation was ne, I think. And then people would put not after it, and then not became obligatory, ne became optional, and now nobody even remembers it anymore. So like, I guess, I don't know, I don't really know Anglo-Saxon, but I guess you, instead of saying I don't go, you would say like I ne go or whatever. And then you might say like I ne go not to emphasize it, like I really don't. And then you say I go not. And then of course in modern English, we have this like we do support comes in, we say I do not go. So yeah, complicated story there. Same thing with ne and pa in French. Pa just means step, and it was used for emphasis, like he doesn't do it even one step. And now it's completely obligatory, and in casual speech you can omit the initial negation. So yeah, so all of that is pretty typical for languages to do. Yeah, important in Egyptian, especially if you're comparing Coptic, you're going to see like a different tendency here, but it's the same word still. So it's kind of nice. You can see the passage of time. And then for next time, we have a whole bunch more exercises. They use the same vocabulary from the previous exercise. I'm trying to kind of limit how much new vocabulary I throw at you with each exercise. And there's just a bunch of sentences, and we will translate them last time, just like we did for exercise 5. So I'll see you all next Saturday, and we'll do some sentences. All right, any questions before we go? It's a lot of stuff. Okay. I'm seeing lots of smiling faces, so I'm sure you're all happy with that, and we'll practice it. Okay. Everyone have a great rest of your week and everything, and I'll see y'all soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.